Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? Happy Friday. And guess what? Happy birthday to me. Oh, I didn't hear the microphone next to me. Yeah. Anyway, happy birthday to me. I am 46 years old today, and I thought it might be fun to get on here and go live, do some Q&A, talk about a few things before I help my wife put her daughters to bed for their nap. And we get started with my official birthday celebration. So, what's up? Let's talk about some things. Real quick, guys, get in on the chat. I'm going to answer some of your questions that you asked me on Twitter and on YouTube. If you have anything that you want to ask live, we got phone lines open. You can call in or you can get in on the chat right here. Um, we got a few comments already. Make sure that you smash that like button. Make sure that you tell people about the show, share it, all that good stuff. And it's what we call paying the fee around here, right? So make sure you guys do that. And we'll kick it off now. Let's talk about Canelo Crawford. So this fight was officially announced. It's been announced for a while, but now it's been re-announced that it's going to take place September 13th. Let me check the date so I don't butcher that. Let's see real quick. I want to make sure I got that date right, because if I don't, they're going to let me have it on Twitter. Yes, September 13th. And it's going to be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, which, for those of you who don't know, is the new NFL football stadium that they put in there maybe a few years ago. It hasn't been that long, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when the Raiders left California for the 5 billionth time, and they went there to Vegas. So I think this is the first big fight in that stadium, which I really, really like. So also, I should mention, it is on Netflix. No pay-per-view, regular Netflix. So let's talk about this. There's two aspects to this fight. There's the business side of it, and then there's the fight, the matchup itself. I want to talk about both of those things briefly, and then I'll get into some of your questions, okay? I just want to give you guys my initial thoughts. Let's start with the business side of this. Real quick, I just want to see how many, I'm Googling this as I chat with you guys. How many subscribers does Netflix have? I'm just curious. According to Google, as of the end of last year, Netflix had over 300 million paid subscribers. That's globally. What I don't know is, I'm going to say, how many do they have in the United States? And Google says about 90 million at the end of last year. So those are the latest numbers. So, or actually below that, it says 81 million. Okay. So there you go, guys. Those are the numbers real quick. Netflix, 300 million global reach, right? And then in America, it's over 80 million, perhaps 90 million here in the United States. So I think it's a genius move by Turkey Al-Sheikh and the crew to put this on Netflix. I love that it's non-pay-per-view. Now, I've heard rumors that it might be a daytime fight. That I don't know. I don't know if that's been confirmed. You guys let me know if it's been confirmed. I've been crazy busy with work and the kids and all the stuff. So I haven't been up on all the news lately. So if that's been released and confirmed, let me know. But I've heard rumors it might be like earlier in the day. And some people like that, some people don't. I don't want to talk too much about that because I don't know if it's been confirmed. But if they do something earlier in the day, I like that. I like that they're trying stuff. The thing with Turkey is he's trying stuff. And you listen, when you try things, some things are going to fail. You know, some things it's going to be, to use a baseball reference, a swing and a miss, right? Strikeout. But sometimes you're going to hit a home run. And I like that he's trying different things. And he kind of left it open. This promotion's kind of been all over the place, right? We didn't know exactly what venue it'd be in. Then they pulled back and said, we don't know what city it's going to be in, right? We don't know what platform it's going to be broadcast on. But guys, it's only June. This fight's going to be in September. It's 3 months away. Literally, today is June 13. It's September 13. So it's 3 months away. That is plenty of time to properly promote the fight. So I like the fact that Turkey kind of shopped around and explored different avenues. And now we know it's going to be Vegas, Allegiant Stadium. To me, this fight belongs in Vegas. those of you who follow my platform, you know I say all the time that Vegas, in my personal opinion, is overrated. I just feel it's overrated. But this fight, if there's any fight that belongs in Vegas, it's this one. You have the premier Mexican fighter of this generation and the premier American fighter of this generation going up against each other for an undisputed championship. It belongs in Vegas. So the fact that they got that done, and then I love that they're doing it in this new venue that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, guys, because I may be incorrect, but to my knowledge, to my recollection, this is the first big fight in that venue. So I like that. That's really cool from a business side of things. And then, boom, it's on Netflix. So I've heard people online asking already, a couple of you guys asked me in a couple of DMs, do you think this could do anywhere near the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson numbers? So that's the business side that I want to talk about real quick. And I'm going to go back to Google. I'm probably going to be Googling this entire show. I want to see how many viewers did Paul versus Tyson have? Okay, so the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight last year, which really, really broke through. I mean, in terms of like the commercial box office appeal, this was the biggest fight this century. Maybe Mayweather Pacquiao is bigger, but obviously in terms of money, of course. But in terms of like live viewership, I don't know. This might have been bigger. But anyway, Paul versus Tyson, according to Google on Netflix, did, wow, live. It did over 100 million people globally. That's live. That's amazing. Now that's globally. Let me see if they can give it to me in the United States specifically. And let's see what it says. Wow, 38. No, okay. Oh, wait a second. Let me back up. 65 million concurrent viewers globally. So I guess that's the live viewership, 65 million. And 38 million of those viewers were in the United States. So let's focus on the USA here, okay? Because globally, those numbers, we've had a lot of big fights globally on a global basis. But here in the USA, this is something I talk about a lot on my platform. You know, boxing has been marginalized so much. You rarely have an event that really breaks through to the mainstream. So with Jake Paul, Mike Tyson last year, 38 million live viewers in the USA. Guys, that's huge for boxing. I mean, that's massive for boxing in the United States in the 21st century. Again, I don't know if Mayweather Pacquiao had that many live viewers in the United States. Perhaps it did. Perhaps it did, but I don't know. That would be hard to validate. But 38 million live viewers in America. Do I think Canelo Crawford's going to do that? I have to say I don't. I don't think it's going to quite do those numbers. And I think a lot of people out there really don't understand just how huge of a brand Mike Tyson is. Of any live, like living boxer, whether they be, you know, active or inactive, retired, whatever, Mike Tyson's the biggest name in boxing still. He's bigger than Mayweather. He's bigger than Pacquiao. He's bigger than Canelo by a mile. It's Mike Tyson. He's bigger than Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, you know, Roberto Duran. You think of all the living great boxers that are now retired, Lennox Lewis, all these guys. Mike Tyson's still the biggest name globally and in America, especially in boxing. And then you take Jake Paul. A lot of people that are 30 and older are like, Jake Paul is not famous. He's not on TV. He's not in movies. Because like if you're a millennial, but especially if you're Gen X or a boomer, you associate fame with television and film or maybe music or whatever. And Jake Paul's in none of those things. So you're like, how can this guy be famous? But in the 21st century, particularly, you know, the 2010s, 2020s, celebrities now are built online. Celebrities are built on apps. And in that world, Jake Paul's a massive celebrity. I mean, massive. He's on the level of a Mike Tyson. Seriously. The only true quote unquote boxer that can compete with Jake Paul in that realm is Ryan Garcia, right? So you have two huge names, crossover names in different spheres, right? Mike Tyson is big with casual sports fans and older people, Gen X, boomers, right? And Jake Paul is popular with the teeny boppers, the Gen Z girls that, the same people who watch Ryan Garcia fight, and maybe some millennials. That's where, so you had they permeated the entire market, those two. Canelo, Crawford, yeah, not on that level. So commercially, box office, I do think this fight's going to do big numbers for boxing, particularly in the United States. But it's going to be on the level of Paul, Tyson. And the reason why I bring that fight up is, number one, it was in America, but number two, it was on Netflix, right? So that's why I'm making that comparison. If the folks at Netflix are expecting a similar outcome, they're going to be disappointed. All that being said, if this fight can do north of 10 million live views in the USA, and then maybe the global viewership, once it's all counted up, is equivalent to Paul Tyson, where it's 100 million or so, that's a huge success, massive success. To me, though, there's one piece missing in this, okay? And if I'm Turki Al-Sheikh, and this is the question I want to bring to you guys, the casual fans, there's going to be some interest. Canelo's kind of broken through, okay? But if we're being honest, even though Canelo is the face of boxing this century, particularly in North America, or I shouldn't say this century, but post Mayweather Pacquiao is what I meant. He's the face of boxing. He's the top brand. Okay. His fan base isn't what I would call a crossover fan base. Canelo doesn't do late night television here like Manny Pacquiao did. He doesn't do Dancing with the Stars and WWE and all that like Mayweather did, and some of the reality shows and stuff he did. He only really deals with Mexican media for the most part, and then American boxing press, right? So he's not a crossover star. Now, casual sports fans in Middle America, the term I use, Joe Sixpack, the guy who wants his Bush beer and, and some chicken wings. That guy, not the stereotype, but that guy, he's probably heard the name Canelo, right? He knows a little bit about him, but it's not on the level of like Mayweather or Pacquiao, those kinds of guys, right? It's not. Canelo's brand hasn't penetrated into Middle America the same way. So even though he's a huge brand and he's the biggest brand in boxing in North America by a mile, still kind of a niche fan base to that extent. I hope what I'm saying makes sense, right? And then with Crawford, he's just never been a huge brand to begin with. And he's a difficult guy to market because of his personality. He's not very good on the mic. He's gotten a lot better. But he's just kind of one of those guys that, like a lot of the Eastern European fighters, honestly, he's kind of a throwback where he just kind of wants to get in the ring and do his thing and do his job and go home, which is cool. I totally get that, but not the easiest guy to market. So my question to you guys is this: what co-feature could Turki Al-Sheikh put on this card that would penetrate the market with the Gen Zers, the teeny boppers, the teenage girls that watch Jake Paul and Ryan Garcia fight? Who could you possibly put on this card to try to get that market involved in watching? And I got to say, I don't know. Obviously, Jake Paul is not going to be on this show, and I don't think he belongs on the show. Ryan Garcia, dude. If Ryan Garcia had beat Raleigh Romero when they fought, what was that, last month? I can't keep up. Last month, April, recently. If he had beat him and looked good doing it, and had Haney looked good beating his opponent, Jose Ramirez, that rematch between Garcia and Haney would have been the perfect co-feature to this fight to bring in Gen Z. but they both shit the bed. Haney won his fight, but nobody gives a shit because of how he fought. And Ryan Garcia looked like shit, even worse than Devin Haney, and lost on top of it. So that's been ruined. But to me, that would be the co-feature that you could throw on this card that you get the teeny boppers watching, and that might literally, I know this may sound crazy to some of you, it could possibly double the live viewership if it was marketed correctly to that fan base. Outside of that, I don't know who you can put in here that has that crossover box office appeal. Us diehards, if you're listening to this show, if you're watching me right now, you know you're going to watch. I'm going to watch. We're going to watch regardless. The guys that are going to be put on the undercard, Turkey Al-Sheikh had a tweet this week. We could talk about his Tom and Jerry tweet talking about runners and how that triggered some folks online, the usual suspects. The names he listed of guys that he would consider for the undercard, those are guys that the casual sports fan can't even pronounce the names. They have no idea who they are. We know who they are, and those fights are for us, right? But who does he put on this card that gets more of that casual fan interest? I just don't know. I just don't know. So that's the business side of this, okay? Then there's the actual matchup, the fight itself. So really quickly, and then I'll start getting the questions and whatnot. When this fight was first talked about, and it's been discussed for a while, this isn't something that just popped up this year. This has been talked about for a while, this matchup. You know, this fight was happening in 2019, 2020. I would pick Canelo by a mile. I really would. Just to me, the size difference would matter so much more at that time. Peak Canelo was 2017, 2018. I'd say 2019, 2020, maybe even into 21. That's like the tail end of his prime. And since that point, he's not been the same guy. He went up against Dmitry Bivol in early 2022, right? It's 3 years ago. By the time he fights Crawford, it will have been 3.5 years. And to me, Bivol beat the last ounce of prime years out of Canelo in that fight. I think that from that point forward, Canelo has been on the farewell tour stage of his career. And I've been talking about this very openly the last couple of years on my platform, and I've taken heat for it. I've been called a Canelo hater and all this stuff. Nothing could be further from the truth. But guys, Canelo is 6-0 since losing to Bivol. The fight just before that was the Caleb Plant fight in 2021. And he got a stoppage in that fight and looked pretty good in that fight. Although Plant did have his moments. Plant really hasn't shown a whole lot since that loss to have us believe he's this elite level guy. I don't really ever think he was quite on that level. I think, he was probably overrated coming into that fight, just like Charlo, who Canelo recently beat, and a lot of other guys we can point to. But Canelo's 6-0 since that loss. And it's been against lackluster opposition. He hasn't fought any prime elite level guy, certainly none in and around his weight class at 68 or 75, right? And he hasn't stopped any of them. He's won the fights clearly, right? There's been zero controversy. And he's even dropped a couple of guys, but he's outclassed some of them and all that. But he hasn't been able to, he hasn't looked as explosive. He hasn't hurt these guys. He hasn't, again, a couple of knockdowns, whatever, but he hasn't really hurt them. He hasn't beat them up. He hasn't stopped them. He hasn't done what he was able to do in 2019, 2021. He hasn't been able to do it. And he's been in there with guys that are B-level. And it's no disrespect to his opponents. You guys know the name, Edgar Berlanga, John Ryder, etc. I'm not trying to put these guys down. Listen, if you're a B-level fighter at the top, at the world-class level, you're still better than 99% of fighters on earth, right? So it's not a put down when I say B-level. I'm trying to keep this in context. It's just at the truly top levels of boxing, if an inch separates two guys, well, that could mean a mile in the fight. Do you get what I'm saying? The levels, there's so many levels to it, and these guys, just an inch separates them sometimes, and just an inch could be the difference between being a good fighter and a great fighter at the top level, right? So I'm not trying to put these guys down, but they're just not on that elite level at the very, very top. And so a prime Canelo stops Berlanga, stops John Ryder, stops Jermell Charlo. Probably doesn't stop a semi-retired Gennady Golovkin, because I don't think anyone does. But other than him, stops the rest of the opponents he has faced. Jaime Munguia stops him. The fact that Canelo hasn't done that shows me that, like, the blade has dulled. There's a few miles, it's coming off the fastball. It's a little softer. It's a little easier to hit. It hangs over the plate a little longer, and you can take it out of the park. Now, Terence Crawford, he has fought once a year since 2020. So at 5 times in the last 5 years, and he's going to continue that trend this year. This will be his only fight of this year. But, he was dominant against Spence. Take from that what you will. I personally believe Errol Spence was always overrated. And some people will say, well, Spence was shot to hell because of the car accident. He hasn't fought since. I would contend, my personal feeling on that is, I don't think Spence has fought for several reasons, but I do think one of the reasons is, if Spence comes back at 154 and beats a guy like Sebastian Fundora, somebody on that level, and wins a belt or a couple belts, then you can't say you were shot for the Crawford fight. Then you just have to admit that Crawford was levels better than you. That's going to be hard to swallow for that fan base, which, they're cult-like in their fandom. It would be easier to just not fight again, so you could say, yeah, I was shot to hell. It was a car accident. That's why I looked so bad in that fight. If Spence comes back and wins a title or something at 154, suddenly that excuse is gone. You can't say, oh, the accident ruined me. I'm a shot fighter. You can't say that anymore. I do think that's one of the underlying reasons why he hasn't fought since. But be that as it may, Crawford dominated Spence, right? He won every second of that fight, brutally, savagely beat him up and stopped him. That's what you should do when you are a class above a guy. And then his first fight back against Madrimov, who's a good quality fighter, wouldn't call him elite. He's right there at that B level. And competitive fight, but he beats him. Difficult style for Crawford. He's kind of struggles with that style. He beat Victor Postol pretty clearly when they fought, but he kind of didn't look good in that fight either. And he just kind of has trouble with that style. So now he's moving up 2 weight classes, and a lot of people are making a lot of that weight jump. I just, at this stage of Canelo's career, I just don't think it's as important as it would normally be. Now, again, if we're talking prime Canelo, the guy that fought Golovkin in those first 2 fights, yeah, I'm taking Canelo probably by stoppage, maybe by stoppage. It might go the distance, but I'm favoring Canelo big. But at this stage of his career, guys, and look, I haven't rated Canelo pound for pound or like as a serious fighter for a couple of years now. And again, I've taken some heat for that. And I mean, even on the Ring Ratings Committee, there are a lot of guys, like, I've been very clear. I laid it out a few weeks ago. I talked about Canelo. We should remove Canelo pound for pound. No one agreed with me. Literally no one on the panel, because you kind of need Canelo up there on the pound for pound list. And to be clear, I should specify, there are only about 6 or 7 guys right now that I rate pound for pound. I don't even have a top 10. So if you're going to have 10 guys, okay, Canelo's on the back end of that. He's number 7, 8, 9. I'm fine with that. But just, I really only rate like 7 guys pound for pound. What is it? It's Usyk, Inoue, Bivol, in no particular order here, guys. Crawford, Bam, Nakatani, Beterbiev, give or take, right? There might be 1 or 2 other guys right there. But those are the guys that I look at right now as the dynamic elite pound for pound guys right now. And to me, Canelo was that guy, but he's past his best years. And I've kept the same energy on this, because I said the same thing about Lomachenko when Ring still rated him pound for pound. And I took some heat for that. Not as much, but I was like, listen, guys, Lomachenko's not a pound for pound fighter anymore. He's not. He's just not. He's not that guy anymore. He's faded. He's past his best years. And so the last year or so of his career, I didn't rate Lomachenko on that level. When he fought Devin Haney, I didn't have Lomachenko on my pound for pound list. And I don't have Canelo on my pound for pound list right now. So there is that element here, okay? And for all those factors, I'm going to take Crawford in this fight. I'm going to take him by decision. I see this as a distance fight. I also think it has the possibility to be a stinker. I hope I'm wrong on that. But just looking at these guys' styles, I mean, Canelo, at this stage of his career, he's not a seek and destroy guy. I don't see him doing that against Crawford because you can really get caught, especially upstairs. Crawford's really, really good at, he's a sharpshooter and a great counterpuncher. Once he makes some adjustments, once you put some leather on him, he switches gears. He gets pissed and he switches gears. So I don't think Canelo is going to just seek and destroy the way he fought some of those super middleweights when he was cleaning out that division, which was a lackluster division anyway at that time. And Crawford, Crawford has shown he could be mean and he could go in there and seek and destroy when he wants to. But he's also had some really dull performances. He didn't look particularly outstanding against Madrimov. I mentioned that. I mentioned the Postol fight. There were some other fights, where he kind of looked dull. He was kind of dull against Kavaliauskas before he got dropped. Then he turned it on. So we've seen that from him before. And he's moving up 2 weight classes. He's going up against his best opponent, Canelo. Even this version of Canelo is still light years better than Errol Spence ever was, just my personal opinion. And it's going to be his best opponent by far. So he knows that. And he's going to feel that the first round or two when he feels some of those punches and sees the underrated speed, the hand speed and all that, the upper body dexterity that Canelo has. So I think he's going to play it safe. And I think we may have a really tactical fight with a lot of feinting and things like that. There might be some explosive combinations here or there, but I think it's going to be a lot of like one punch at a time. I hope I'm wrong, but I just get that vibe about this fight. Anyway, I see a distance fight, and I see Crawford getting a decision here, which would be interesting because Canelo has had several close fights in Las Vegas, and he's always gotten the decision, okay? Even if he lost clearly, he still got a draw. Even if it was a really close fight, he got the draw, the win. If Crawford is able to get a decision in a close competitive fight in Las Vegas, that would be very interesting. It's something we would have to talk about. Let's talk quickly pound for pound. I mentioned it a minute ago. If Crawford beats Canelo, there are going to be a lot of people out there that want him rated #1 pound for pound. Now, for me to even consider that, he is going to have to destroy Canelo. He is going to have to dominate him and destroy him. That's what he's going to have to do to rate #1 pound for pound consideration from me. If he goes out there and slightly outpoints Canelo, yeah, not enough. And that might sound crazy to some people, but that's why I'm level setting, guys, and I'm letting you know where I rate Canelo right now, how I view him as a fighter at this stage of his career, because of that reason. If Crawford wins, let's say 115, 113 on all 3 judges' scorecards, it's the best win of his career. It's a historic win. He's the undisputed super middleweight champion, all that good stuff. But does it usurp what Alexander Usyk has done? No, it doesn't. It just doesn't. So he'd have a lot of credentials, and you could obviously make a very, very intelligent argument for him being #1. And maybe I'll change my mind on this. But I don't know. If he barely wins, I don't know. Now, if he Errol Spence's Canelo, if he puts down Canelo, becomes the first guy to really hurt him and drop him or stop him, okay, then we have to talk about that. We have to talk about Crawford being the pound for pound #1 guy. We have to have the conversation. Now, if Canelo wins, I just gave all the reasons why I really don't rate Canelo as a top pound for pound guy anymore. If he beats Crawford, there are going to be people out there who say he should be put back at #1, or at least in the top 2 or 3 pound for pound. once again, I say, if he just outpoints Crawford and wins 115, 113 or something, well, you're supposed to do that. You're the bigger guy. You're supposed to do that against the smaller guy. So you're not doing anything exceptional there. Yes, you're being a guy who's on the pound for pound list, top 5, top 3, depending on who you talk to. But I don't think just barely beating Crawford, a guy who is legitimately moving up 2 weight classes, rates top 5 pound for pound consideration from Canelo, especially considering his work over the last 3 years. Losing to Bivol and beating 6 guys that are B-level guys, and then beating a guy who is way smaller and moving up on paper. I say that because I don't think Crawford really is that much smaller than Canelo, but in terms of the frame, he is. But in terms of the length and height, it's a different story. Anyway, just barely beating him, probably not, in my opinion, a pound for pound accomplishment. But if I'm gonna compare this to a Lomachenko fight, if Canelo beats Crawford up, dominates him, wins every second of the fight, and stops Crawford or makes him quit, different discussion at that point, okay? And it reminds me there are parallels. It's not the exact same, obviously, but there are parallels to Lomachenko-Rigondeaux. There are a lot of people out there. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the boxing fan space on social media. When Lomachenko beat Rigo, he didn't just beat him. He dominated him. He outclassed him. He was hurting him. He was on his way to stopping him legitimately. So Rigo quit. After years of chasing Loma, talking trash, getting nasty online to get that fight, he gets in there and quits. Loma broke his will and made him quit. That was a domination. So I gave Lomachenko tremendous credit for that win, even though, yes, Rigo was the smaller guy moving up. Lomachenko, who was at a size disadvantage for most of the big fights in his career, pretty much all of them actually, he had a size advantage in this fight, right? So there's some parallels with Canelo in his recent run at 68-75 here. But I gave him a lot of credit for that win because of how he won. You get what I'm saying? Had Loma outpointed Rigo 115, 113, I wouldn't have rated that win so highly. But because he dominated and stopped the guy and broke his will and made him quit and run away, I give him tremendous credit. Now, if Canelo can do that to Crawford, I will give him tremendous credit. Nobody at this point has been able to even get close to doing that to Crawford, right? He looks like one of these guys that has an iron will that you can't break. He looks like one of those guys. That's how Rigo looked before Lomachenko, by the way. And Rigo came into that fight, I think, top 3 pound for pound rating, right? Just like Crawford here coming into this Canelo fight. So if Canelo can do that, if he can Rigo Crawford, okay. But if he barely beats him, I'm not going to give him that much credit. And it's going to be interesting to see if people keep the same energy they had for Lomachenko when he beat Rigo. Should Canelo beat Crawford, if they keep the same energy? Because a lot of the Lomachenko haters just don't even acknowledge his win over Rigo. They don't even count it. Because, he had a size advantage. Size advantage. Right? And they give him no credit. But some of those same people might give Canelo a ton of credit if he slightly outpoints Crawford here. So it's not just about winning, it's how you win. Okay? I think that's a big, big factor here. Okay. I think I saw a super chat. Yes, I did. Corey Lee Boxing with the super chat. Thank you so much, brother. He says, just want to say what's up. Awesome live stream. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. And I think that's the only super chat for right now. Real quick, guys, I'm going to share my screen here. I want to go to Twitter. I'm sorry, X. And respond to some questions here. I posted a tweet. I said, ask me your questions. Let me get to a couple of these real quick. We'll run them off real quick. Jack Alter says, would you have favored Canelo if this was the prime Canelo that fought Triple G in the rematch in 2018? I honestly would favor Canelo if it was that version. even though I'm favoring Crawford in this fight. Jack, spot on, brother. Yeah, I mean, we pretty much agree on this 100%. I already talked about it, but yeah, I absolutely would have favored Canelo, but at this point, I favor Crawford. And maybe we'll both be surprised come September 13, but I kind of see this the same way you do, man. Luke asks, do you think recent bad calls by athletic commissions, Tank, Roach, and Navarrete Suarez could eventually affect people betting on boxing and the various online betting apps that sponsor the fights? That's a great question. And I can tell you, Luke, it already does. Thad, who calls into the show all the time, we talk a lot, just offline with upcoming fight cards because he gambles a lot. And he's not the only one. I talk to several people like that all the time. And a lot of times they will change their bet depending on the state or the country a fight is in, but particularly if it's an American fight, which state it's in and who the promoter is. That will affect the way that they, and then sometimes like, who the ring officials are, the referee, the judges, that can sway. Dude, we've seen stuff like that literally change the odds of a fight overnight. So I think the apps like that because it's action, right? It's traffic on the app. When you see that, oh God, this referee is in there. Oh man, the odds shift and a bunch of people move money on the other fighter or something. The apps love that because they're getting traffic. So I actually think they like all the controversy. But for gamblers, yeah, it's something that unfortunately you have to consider when you are placing bets. And sometimes you'll place a bet early on a fight when you have certain odds that you like. And then like a week before the fight, they announce the ring officials. You're like, oh shit, I wouldn't have bet this way, and it screws up your bet. That happens a lot too. So it's all over the place, man. But it's one of the reasons, well, just one of several reasons why I don't bet, because it's just, I already, look, I invest in the stock market and I've really started to get into that in the last year or so. That's gambling already. So that's enough gambling for me. Young Stan asks, that's 2 a.m. in Launceston. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Launceston. Well, so it's what, 2:30 over there right now? Well, sorry to wake you up at this time, brother, but he says, what's your favorite weight class and what's the best location you've been to for a fight? My favorite weight class right now is the heavyweight division. I think we've had a lot of fun fights, mostly because of Turkey Al-Sheikh. And this heavyweight division is very flawed. I'm not going to put it up there with some of the greatest divisions, we've seen, the heavyweight divisions we've seen in the past, eras, I should say. It's certainly not the greatest era, but we have a lot of really interesting, entertaining personalities and styles from really all over the world. I've talked about this on my channel a lot. You've got the UK guys, the Eastern European guys. You've got the South Asian, or I should say Southeast Asian guys, like from China, like Zhang. You got guys from Australia, New Zealand, USA, Mexico. So you've got heavyweights from all over the place, and Africa. And they make the division a lot of fun because it's so international. I feel like I'm watching like a World Cup when I watch heavyweight boxing in the 21st century. And we've just seen a lot of fun fights lately, man. Really entertaining fights. We just, the Wardley fight, Wardley Huni, what was that, last week? So last week or 2 weeks ago, it's all a blur. But man, that was super fun, right? This division's a lot of fun right now, bro. And then the best location I've seen a fight, I will say the most impressive venue I've ever been to, that really impressed me, was AT&T Stadium just outside of Dallas, Texas. I covered a couple of events there, and I was there for pretty much all of fight week. This is before I had kids, so I could go for the whole fight week and be there for all the pressers and the weigh-in and all that stuff. And what an impressive complex that is, dude. I got to walk the whole bowels of that venue and all the surrounding stuff, like the practice fields and all that. Amazing. But the funnest place to just watch a fight is, I still call it StubHub Center. Now it's called Dignity Health Sports Complex or something. They actually haven't had a fight card there in a while, but it's South LA, just south of Los Angeles in Carson, California. Always, I've never been disappointed watching a fight there. Just such a fun venue. It only seats maybe 7 or 8,000. It's a very intimate kind of setting. So much fun, man. Just a great time there. All right, Ashtrays, I should say, says, I can't see Crawford KOing Canelo. I can't see Canelo KOing Crawford at this stage. Then parentheses, he says, I think that's possible. How much does Crawford have to put up to solidify him winning if it comes down to a decision? In other words, what's the likelihood of a robbery in your opinion? Yeah, I kind of talked about this a little bit a minute ago, right? That to me is a big factor here. Now, this fight's in Vegas. It's not in Saudi Arabia. It's not in Riyadh. But still, the money's still with Canelo, dude. I know that Terence Crawford's American and stuff, but it's not like Terence Crawford's 25 and going to be fighting for the next 10 years. He's got a couple of fights left in his career after this, just like Canelo. The money's still with Canelo. However, if you can build Crawford with this fight and he gets a decision and he beats Canelo, maybe you can build his brand up and make some money with him the last couple fights. So there's some interesting factors at play in regards to that. I would not be shocked if Crawford actually gets a close decision in this fight. Now, maybe I'll look like an idiot in September for saying that, right? And we'll be like, oh, here we go again. You know, like Canelo wins a controversial decision. But I honestly, maybe I'm just a gullible idiot, but I think the business of boxing is going to look at this, and I think Crawford could actually win a close decision in Vegas for this fight. It's just the vibe I get. The guys that Canelo has gotten close decisions over were from Eastern Europe, Cuba, right? So Crawford's American, and he fits the mold. He's undefeated, all the stuff. I think he might get the close decision. That's just where I lean, man. That's just my gut feel on it. Joshua Klitschko asks, who do you think will rule heavyweight after Usyk beats Dubois and potentially retires? I think Caballero is the best contender right now, and then some prospect like Jalolov or Ituma, if he stops gaining weight, could be the next thing. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Wardley has been in a few wars already. He's really exciting. He does have the eraser, but a lot of these guys have the eraser against the B level. Do they still have it at the A level? Usually that changes when they really, really step up. To answer your question, and I hate to be this cliche, I don't know. But that's part of the fun of the heavyweight division right now, because it really could be Jalolov. He looks like the guy. He hasn't been that active lately, though, but he looks like the guy. It could be Ituma. To your point, if he gets more disciplined and stays on weight, it could be Wardley. Who the hell knows? It could be a guy that's already there that just goes on a run. What if Dubois shocks the world? I don't think that's going to happen. I think Usyk's going to win. But what if? If Dubois shocks the world and beats Usyk, suddenly he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. He's in his 20s. He's in the UK, massive fan base, probably the most rampant fan base in boxing right now on a global basis, doing the most business anyway in terms of money, like domestically. And he'd have plenty of guys to fight who are coming up. It could go either way, man. It really could. But yeah, obviously I favor Usyk in that fight. We will talk about that later, though. Manos de Piedra asked, how would you rate as your top 4 action fighters ever, all eras? Love the podcast. Bro, I'd have to really think about that one. On the spot, I got to go Gotti. Man, action fighters all time? Whew. Henry Armstrong's probably up there because all that dude did was throw punches. He just got in there. He's a windmill just throwing punches. But, dude, I can't answer your question. Now, if you said 4 guys in the last 20 years or something, I could answer that. But all time, I'd have to really sit down and think. But off the top of my head, Gotti is on the list. There have been so many guys that were just all action all the time, always exciting, that I'd have to really, really think about that one, bro. Great question. Eric Haynes, Jamal Charlo versus Andrade at 168. Who wins? The fans, Eric. The fans win. God, I hope that. Do you remember like how many people were like saying that fight needs to happen? That fight could really break through. Like, oh my God, have those suggestions aged horribly? Real quick, I got a couple of questions. I made a post on YouTube and I got a couple of questions there. Oh, guys, my wife just brought me a beer. Look at this. All right, I'm going to have to drink a beer. I got a question here from Adazga, I think. Adazga. He says, my opinion, it's a statement. He says, my opinion of this fight, he's talking about Canelo Crawford, is that as far as Canelo is concerned, it's a waste of time, and I will struggle to give Canelo credit. This fight only makes sense. It only makes me more annoyed we didn't get Canelo versus Benavidez. You're not alone in that sentiment, but hopefully you're listening to the show and you've listened from the beginning and reconsider if Canelo dominates and stops Crawford, you got to give him credit, dude. You have to. Just like I gave Lomachenko credit for doing what he did against Rigo, I will give Canelo credit if he could do something similar to Crawford. Now, I'm with you. If Canelo barely beats Crawford, a lot of people in the media are going to hype it up because it's going to help them get clicks and all. They're going to say, "Oh my God, he's back! He's back. This is the prime Canelo's back." Blah blah blah. But a lot of more astute fans like yourself and myself would say, you kind of did what you were supposed to do, bro. Right? So it'll be hard to give him that much credit. I'm with you. I wouldn't say it's a waste of time, though. It's one of the biggest fights he could do, honestly. That is the most winnable fight. There's more winnable fights for Canelo, but not this big. This is the perfect combination for him of a winnable fight that's a big fight. You get what I'm saying? So David Benavidez would not have been as big of an event on a global basis as this fight. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Commercially, this fight will be bigger. And in a lot of ways, Crawford will get more credit for beating. I'm sorry, Canelo will get more credit for beating Crawford because Crawford's a bigger name. He's highly rated. He's a pound for pound guy, right? And the diehard fans from the Mexican American fan base are going to be really, really engaged in this matchup. The diehard African American fan base, which is there for Crawford, is going to be fully engaged in this fight. So you're going to have some hardcore fan bases that are really, really dialed in here, and a lot of casual fan interest too, bro. So I think, Canelo Benavidez would have been huge in Mexico, huge with Mexican Americans. Outside of that, diehard fans, of course, but casuals, they don't know who David Benavidez is. They might not know who Crawford is that much, but they know him after that Spence fight, particularly again in the black media complex. Crawford got a lot more name recognition, and that's going to carry over into this promotion, bro. Trust me on that. Okay, Rue Ken asks, what do you think of what Turkey said about running away? He's referring to that Tom and Jerry tweet. And maybe I can, maybe I'll look that up and share my screen. So let me see if I can find that tweet real quick. But let me read the rest of this question. He says, seems like he's trying to be the Don of boxing, mob reference, and control even the boxers. He's not a real fan, and he only wants dudes to stand and bang. I guess money talks, though. Say goodbye to defensive fighters. And then Adazga responds to him and says, running is not engaging. At the end of the day, boxing is fighting. And in my opinion, the less we have of jab, retreat, feint, retreat, jab, clinch, and repeat type of fighters in the sport, the more healthy the sport will be. No running rule would not affect fighters with great footwork and positioning if that's what you were worried about. Completely agree with that response, by the way. And real quick, I want to see if I can find Turkey's tweet. I might not be able to find this, guys, because I'd have to probably scroll back too far. Let me try real quick. Oh, no, actually, wait. I found it. Let's share my screen again so you guys can see this. Okay. I'm going to read Turkey's tweet, and then I promise I'll give you my thoughts on your question. I just want to give full context. So Turkey says, from this point on, I don't want to see any more Tom and Jerry type boxing matches where one fighter is running around the ring and the other is chasing him. We can no longer support these kind of fights with Riyadh Season and the ring. We want to support fighters who leave it all in the ring and fight with heart and pride. So again, that triggered some folks because they took it as a dog whistle targeting certain fighters. I don't think it was that at all. Or certain culture of fighters. I don't think it was that at all. I think he was referring to what we saw in that New York card. Okay, which by the way, there was fighters of several different cultures in those the two main events. There was a main event, co-main. It was kind of a co-main event thing, right? And it wasn't targeted at one group of people. I mean, they all shit the bed, right? So, I think what Turkey's trying to listen. Turkey is a promoter at this point, right? And he's promoting. He's talking to the fans. He's saying things that the fans want to hear. Now, I would refer to you a name that I've used a lot in this show, a fighter that I think is criminally underappreciated, Chris Bird, an undersized heavyweight in the previous era that fought both Klitschko brothers, fought Vlad twice, actually. And he didn't run. He was extremely defensive. He had to be because he was an undersized heavyweight. He couldn't rely on power, but he relied on skills, movement, all of that. But he'd sit in the pocket and make guys miss. He'd use some lateral movement. He would move about the ring, but he wouldn't run. Chris Bird, to me, in the modern era, showed how you can stay in the pocket and be slick and defensive and all that, and also be entertaining, because he'd get in there and move his head and he'd make these big guys miss, and it was really entertaining to watch because he'd be right in front of them a lot of times. He'd be up on the ropes sometimes and just making these guys look foolish, and then he'd touch them a couple times and move out, and it was entertaining even though he wasn't knocking guys out. So you can fight defensively and tactically, or I should say technically, and win and be impressive and be exciting and interesting to watch. You can do that. I think what Turkey's talking about is, I'm sorry, but Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, I mean, some of these guys in their recent fights, what fight was it with Stevenson? It might have been 2 fights ago where he and the opponent like set CompuBox records. The punch output was so low. And he's had a couple of those, right? And this is a guy that on paper, he was a massive favorite against. And it's the same thing with Haney. That's the kind of thing that Turkey's talking about. And you know what? I think most fans agree with that sentiment. I think that they agree with, they want to see action. So I get what Turkey's saying there. And don't take it too much to heart. He's being a promoter. But instead of having guys like the jerk off who was over at Showtime Boxing who ran it into the ground, right? That guy would be online. Stephen Espinoza would be on X arguing with fans, like literally having arguments and like shouting matches on X with fans who would criticize his product. Turkey is at least listening because he got reamed after that New York card. I mean, he got just reamed, right, by the fans. So he's talking to the fans here. He's actually listening and responding, and he's doing it in an intelligent way. He's doing it kind of like a politician would do it. There's some deflecting and stuff going on, but he's actually handling it way better than someone like Espinoza has in recent years. This is the way you should talk to fans. So I applaud Turkey for handling it this way, and I totally agree with his sentiments here. Now, is it going to always translate to the ring that way? Probably not, but I think that it's a smart thing to do while you're trying to promote and speak to the fans. So look, guys, my wife brought me a Peroni, and it's in a Peroni glass. My brother Anthony loved Peroni. So every now and then, I don't really drink, once or twice a month, I might have a drink or two. But every now and then, you just got to do a beer in honor of my brother. I do that, especially on a day like today where I wish he could be here for my birthday. So I miss him. What's crazy is, coming up later this year, this November, will be 5 years since my brother died. Wow. So I'll definitely be having one of these on that day. But anyway, I'm going to enjoy this. Going to jump to the phones. I think we got Hamed on the phone here. Let's pick up his call. All right, 796, you're on the show. What's up?
Hello, Mike. It's been a while. First of all, congratulations on the birthday, 46th birthday. I wasn't aware it was your birthday until I seen your post.
What's that?
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware it was your birthday until I seen your post. I think it was on YouTube. Did you make a post on YouTube, I think?
Yeah, I posted a couple of things, a couple social media things today, just kind of celebrating my birthday a little bit. I got in my birthday workout. Every birthday, early in the morning, I do a hard workout. So I went to the boxing gym and got that in. It's just a tradition that I love to do, and my wife does it too. And so I got my workout in, and now I'm going to have my beer. So what's up?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like the shape you're in for your age. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the society or how people are now. Like, even myself, I think about getting back into sparring because, like, you're in very good shape for your age. But if you walk around the street or somewhere here, like, someone 46 would look a lot older than you. So I don't know, maybe I think people or the society just don't take care of themselves. And
oh God,
I think
America,
a lot of people,
dude. Especially in America.
yeah, it's similar in the UK.
Yeah, you're right. I guess it's the whole Western world, right? I will say, having kids has made me want to fight harder to stay in shape and stay youthful, because I have to set an example for them. I know it might sound corny, but um, I want to be in shape to be able to play with them and do things with them and be active with them. I mean, my daughters are 2.5 and 1.5. If I let myself go now, by the time they're teenagers, I'm not even going to be able to like walk, So I'm just trying to stay jacked. I want to be the most jacked dad that they in their class, so that's the goal.
Yeah, I get you. Boxing training is definitely one of the best ways to stay in shape. I do miss sparring. I haven't sparred for like over 10 years. I stopped doing boxing training, but I was thinking about getting back into it because I don't miss getting hit, but I do miss just the whole adrenaline of getting in the ring. And yeah, if you do have another fight, like let me know, because for your age, like that's quite impressive. I don't think many pros even doing that age. Like it gets hard when you're in your 30s and I'm my 40s, late 30s.
Yeah, it's I will say this. I think I talked about this on my last video, but this last camp that I had, I did start to feel my age. It has crept up. It might just be because I'm a dad now and I'm getting up I'm not getting sleep as much and stuff, but man, I felt it. So if I do another fight or two, that's going to be it. I'm not going to do this for much longer. I'm always going to go to the boxing gym, but I'm not going to be sparring and doing that stuff for much longer because I'm really starting to feel it where, man, I would just be sore. I could take the punches and all that, but it would be like the next morning. I'd wake up like, oh shit, it felt like a car hit me sometimes. So yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't miss about like sparring. The pain you feel afterwards, like, but that was even with a head guard. Do you spar without the head guard?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So this last camp, the first week or two, I used the headgear, but I hate the headgear. I hate it. It just limits your visibility.
Yeah.
It actually makes your head a bigger target. So I started sparring without it. And, my coach was like, okay, but, let's see how it goes. And it went better. I was sparring better without the headgear. And you actually tighten up on defense because you feel like, okay, I don't want to get hit. and you get more marked up. You know, you get more bruises and stuff, but like your skin toughens up and it gets harder, and you get calluses and all that. And the last the guy pulled out of the fight like 10 days before the fight. The last like week of sparring, my face was holding up great. And there might be a couple red marks. The next morning I wake up, they'd be gone. So I actually preferred going without the headgear. To me, it just helps you prepare for a fight, a pro fight better.
The headgear makes you sweat a lot more as well. I didn't used to like wearing it. It makes you sweat.
It just slides around. No
You're right.
You make it. It's just awkward. I just hate it.
Yeah, it's like a big helmet on top of your head. Yeah, it's an uncomfortable feeling. But going to boxing, I was just thinking, I'm kind of glad, like with the Crawford Canelo fight, is in Vegas. Like that's a fight. I think if Turkey put in Saudi or somewhere else, yeah, I think you could definitely have valid criticism, even though it's in money. But you got to market to the right audience or demographic. And this is a fight that belongs in Vegas. I just hope I understand the fight will probably not do the same numbers as the Tyson Paul fight, but I hope we don't have the same problem we had on Netflix. And last time I couldn't even log into my Netflix account, so I just had to watch it, I think, on my phone or I streamed it in a different way.
Yeah, I hope Netflix has fixed some of that shit, because there are a lot of people who had trouble really around the world. People were bitching about that. So I hope they got some of those things worked out.
Yeah, I don't think that fight will do those. Was it 60 or 70 million? If it does even half, I think that's a success. Like 30 million. Was that 70 million in America, or was that 70 million around the world? Because if that's just in America, that's pretty impressive. But I don't know if those were numbers, because I forgot to check if those numbers are global viewers.
I Googled it at the beginning of the show, and I think in America it was 30 million or so, and then globally it was almost 70 million. That's live. I think the combined viewership was like 100 million or something globally. So,
yeah. Regarding the fight, like, how would you compare if Crawford wins? I kind of do agree with you. Depends how he wins. I think then there's an argument for him and Usyk being 1 and 2 or what they would be. I do think Canelo is a better fighter than Fury overall. Maybe not as big, and the size disadvantage was much bigger. But I do think even this version of Canelo, you could make a valid argument, is a better version than Fury, because Fury, I just think he was totally overrated by some people. Very good fighter in his era, but I just would never class him as an all-time great. I do think Canelo, you could still class him as an all-time great, even this division, because he hasn't, to my knowledge, lost that super middleweight. But if Crawford does beat him, would you say Crawford deserves more credit than the division that Mayweather? Because I know some Canelo fans are already saying Canelo's past his prime, but they were also saying the Canelo that Mayweather beat was too green, too inexperienced, 23. I think there's some valid argument on both sides, but for me, I would probably give Crawford more credit. How do you feel about that comparison?
I probably would give Crawford more credit. I mean, we would have, again, it's how he wins. Mayweather was a smart enough businessman and matchmaker to understand that he needed to fight Canelo at that time and not let him get into his prime and really, really find himself. So he fought Canelo when he was, as you mentioned, 23. And, you know, the Mayweather fans will say, well, Crawford or Canelo had already won belts and he was a champion. Yeah. You look at his resume and who he had fought up until that point. Canelo fighting Mayweather was a quantum leap in the level of opposition at that time. Look, if Crawford beats Canelo, even like I mentioned before, even at this stage of Canelo's career, even though he's past his best, he's still Crawford's best opponent. So Crawford is the commercial B-side. He's moving up 2 weight classes. He's fighting his best opponent. He's fighting for an undisputed championship. Yeah, I'd probably give Crawford more credit if he beats Canelo.
Yeah, I'd probably agree, because he's jumping up 2 divisions. He's never fought that super middleweight with the Mayweather fight. Mayweather was already a fighter who had, I think, fought once or twice at junior middleweight, and that was at a catchweight. And Canelo, I think I'd only really beaten maybe Austin Trout. The rest of those wins were
Yes.
either against guys were past
That's
their prime
absolutely
or maybe
correct.
B.
Austin
B or
Trout
C.
was his
Well,
best win at that point.
yeah. Well, going by Mayweather's words, this is what he said before the fight. Like, I remember I read, like, I think it was 2 articles, because I was really looking forward to that card. It was Danny Garcia, Lucas Batista on the undercard. And I remember reading the whole Ring magazine, and then I found a preview in the Sun newspaper. And Mayweather's words were, he fought Matthew Hatton and was it Jose Miguel Cotto, and I fought Miguel Cotto and Ricky Hatton. So he was already alluding that this was a calculated fight. I still give him credit for how he won, but I do think he knew what he was doing, like when he fought him at that time, because Canelo, I don't think was anywhere near the same fighter that fought Golovkin or Jacobs or those guys. Whether or not he would ever beat Mayweather, I probably still would say no at 154, because I just don't think his style would suit up. But I think Mayweather got him at the right time to make him look how he did that night. But with Crawford, I still think Crawford could win this fight. Like, I would probably say is more an even matchup. But I agree with you. Like, if they fought a year ago or 2 years ago, I was heavily favoring Canelo. Like, a lot of people keep going over the Madrimov fight. To me, Madrimov and Canelo don't find nothing alike. Like, do you think there's any comparison? Because Canelo's footwork is much slower, and Madrimov, I think, got faster feet. The only thing I would see is Canelo probably moves his head a lot better and probably hits harder. Like, I think Madrimov's probably quicker than him as well, with the hand speed and the foot speed as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Some people have tried to make this comparison between Madrimov and Canelo, and I don't really see that. Again, I think Madrimov has a lot more Victor Postol in him in terms of style. Not exactly, of course, but I think Canelo.
I would compare him to Golovkin. I would compare him probably more to Golovkin.
Of course, but I'm just talking about in terms of opponents that Crawford has fought, guys he's actually fought, right? So I just think that kind of style gives him trouble. He just it takes him a while to catch up to it. Canelo's not going to fight the same way. I mean, what Canelo was doing during his super middleweight run, where he was winning all the belts, is he was just stalking these taller, longer guys, stalking them and nailing them to the body. He's not going to be able to fight Crawford that way, right? And he's slowed down with that style these last few fights anyway. So again, Hamed, I think we could wind up in a fight that's very dull, where both guys are kind of standing there feinting and trying to get a counter off, trying to bait the opponent into throwing something so they can counter it. I hope we don't, but stylistically, that's probably what we're going to get, at least through the first half of the fight.
Yeah, it's possible, but I don't expect a toe-to-toe fight. Like, the casual fans or the fans that expect, like, this is not the fight that would have been, like, between Canelo or Benavidez, or maybe in Crawford and Boots, because of the styles. But I do think it could be a better fight than people like, I think, because I've never seen Crawford run in a fight. The only fight I thought he was a bit too negative was the Postol fight. And I honestly think that was because of how good of a fighter Postol was. Because I remember he knocked out Lucas Matisse, and Danny Garcia wanted no part of it. He was a very good fighter.
Yeah.
You really?
I think Postol was an underrated fighter. That all things considered, Hamed, that still might be Crawford's best win. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's
debatable. Yeah. On paper, you could debate that. Postol, that was a good win, but that fight was about 10 years ago. I don't know if Crawford could use his legs as much as he was that night, but I also don't think Canelo's the same fighter. Like, I thought Khan won pretty much most of those rounds. I know Khan got completely wiped out, and that fight ended. Like, it's not a 6-round fight; it's a 12-round fight. But even back then, Canelo has trouble, I think, with guys with fast feet. And if Canelo can't knock him out, I think Crawford wins this, unless they do what they did to Pernell Whitaker with Chavez. I just don't see this Canelo busy enough or quick enough to pull the trigger. Like, he's still a very good fighter, and stylistically, he may even give guys like Benavidez, if they were to fight at 68 or even 75, depending on if there's a rehydration club, maybe even still trouble. But the way he fights and the way he's always at trouble, if not cutting the ring off, just being effective at like trying to catch people who are moving away or slipping and sliding, I think Crawford can win this and even make him look quite bad. It's just the big factor is the weight. Like, because I sent you something. To me, Crawford has put on a lot of weight, but do you think he did it the right way, putting it on his legs? Because I thought if he puts on weight on his shoulders and arms, that to me would have been a bad decision.
Yeah, I saw Hamed. You sent me that video recently with Crawford shadowboxing in the ring, and I think you saw the same thing I did, where a lot of the weight went to Crawford's legs. And I don't know what they're doing. I haven't talked to anyone in their camp, but perhaps he's squatting. One of the things I've done, not to make this about me, but one of the things I've done recently in my camps is I'm not doing a lot of upper body weightlifting. I'm doing a lot of squatting and power cleans and stuff to build up my legs and like my core. And I think if you build that up, you can keep your speed up top, but you have a power base underneath it. And to me, that's what it looks like Crawford is doing. I know there's a lot of science, a lot of that's kind of the new fad right now in some of the sports medicine stuff going on. The strength and conditioning coaches are big on that. And so maybe that's what he did, because his legs look bigger to me, dude. His legs almost look like they doubled in size. And I think that's a smart play, because you can keep the speed and agility, everything up top, but you have a base underneath it. And that's really going to help on the inside and the clinch. So to me, it looks like he's put on the weight the right way.
Would that slow his footwork or mobility down or not? Because I just can't remember the last time someone did.
No, I was going to. His foot speed is going. There's going to be a little bit taken off his foot speed. He's still going to be faster than Canelo, though. I think that if he was doing this at 154, it wouldn't make sense. But for this kind of matchup, and he's not planning on fighting 2 or 3 times a year and fighting for several more years, right? This is a career-defining type of fight for him. So he's going all out. And I think that's the right way to build it up. Build that lower body foundation and use that to, again, I think a lot of this fight is going to be determined in that mid-range and perhaps on the inside. And I think it's going to surprise people how strong Crawford is there. They're expecting Canelo to kind of bully him in those stretches. I actually think Crawford's going to more than hold his own at that range. That's just the way I see it.
It's possible because the sparring footage of Crawford sparring, I think, Carlos Adames was like a big middleweight. And I think he was backing up Adames. I don't even think he needs to spend that much time on the inside. Because if we look at how Mayweather fought Canelo, I know that was like 12-something years ago and it's a different Canelo, but still he has the same problems with that style. And Crawford just needs to follow that game plan and blueprint and just do what Mayweather did, but he could do it in a, how do I put it, more efficient way, because he hits, I think, a lot harder, even though he's never fought at 68. But that was going to come to my next question. Like, do you think he should come in at low 160s, or does that weight, do you think maybe factor on depending on how he feels? Because Roy Jones, when he moved up, I know it was only against John Ruiz, but I don't even think he came in at 200 pounds. He was like 193 or 192, something like that. So, like, Crawford, I do think he probably coming over the 160 limit. But should he come in like 161, 162, or do you think just come in how heavy as you want?
It really depends on what he weighs right now, and I just don't know. If he weighs 180 right now in the gym, then that's going to be different. But if he's walking around at 172 or something right now, then I would agree with you. I just don't know. You mentioned Roy Jones against Ruiz. That was a matchup where Roy depended 100% on speed. That matchup was all about speed. I don't think that's Crawford's game plan here, because Canelo, Crawford's probably a little bit faster, but not that much with the hands. I think it's going to surprise people that Canelo's hand speed is going to be almost on par. It's going to be the footwork, the angles, the spacing, and that sort of thing, the positioning that's going to help Crawford here. And that's why I think, again, he's building up that base. And he's going to, not that he can get in there and push Canelo around, I'm not saying that, but he can get angles on him and get counters off. That's where it's going to be for Crawford. But comment, I got a few other calls, brother. You got one more question?
Right, before I go, I do think if you put Canelo in that place, he doesn't like to, the look he had on his face when Triple G, Bivol, and even Mayweather were backing him up. I think if Crawford puts him in that place, I think, could be really uncomfortable. I just wanted to touch on the current state of American boxing before I let you go, because I know you got other callers. I thought Keyshawn Davis was going to be the next guy who could have become a marquee fighter, but I really don't know what is going on in the whole current state of American boxing. Because that whole thing, I'm sure you know what happened and then how the event, just what happened overnight, how it just all spiraled out of control. I seriously don't know. Maybe Turkey, I think, would you agree, needs to be careful with who he puts his money in? Because I thought at one point Devin Haney had the right mindset when he was going to Australia, fighting Cambosos, fought Lomachenko, made the weight, he didn't miss weight, unified titles, did all the things. He started now to do the same thing, stunt the joint out with Ramirez. They're not taking any accountability. And I just look around, maybe there's only Boots Ennis, Bam, and maybe, I don't know if I missed someone. There's only about 2 or 3 active American fighters, champions, who are actually behaving like champions. What do you think about the future? What should Turkey do? Because I seriously think he needs to be careful. Even Teofimo Lopez, he just blatantly, I think, turned down the fight with Haney, and then he's playing mind games. But do you think he should just stay away from these fighters and start putting money in some of the other divisions? Because we need a unification at middleweight, and I don't know if Turkey is planning on doing something, or even at cruiserweight. But how do you think Turkey should go about that before I drop off?
If I'm Turkey, I realize I'm the money man, right? And he's willing to kind of overpay these fighters to get the right matchup. If they don't perform, they're gone. And basically it'd be like, if you want to make money, you got to take this level of matchup. So if Haney wants to come back, Shakur Stevenson, those kinds of guys, they need to fight each other. It needs to be an elite high-level matchup, or else don't mess with them. If you're Turkey, at this point, bring in the guys who are making the action and making the big fights, right? So I just mentioned Fabio Wardley a minute ago. And Turkey's big into heavyweights. It's like that guy can't be in a bad fight. so make something with him. Those are the kinds of guys I think he's going to start paying. And I think that the biggest problem with the American boxers, like these Gen Z American boxers, is they're just too coddled. They're spoiled. They're entitled. I'm going to use the P word. They're privileged. They win a belt,
I agree.
And they think that, oh God, the world owes them a favor. And they don't understand that this is a business. And you're allowed to have an off night here or there. But if you only fight twice a year and one of those is an off night, it's really hard to build a fan base. If you fight 5 times a year and you have an off night once a year, that's different. These guys are fighting once or twice a year. I mean, Devin Haney, you just mentioned, he fought, I think, once last year. And I think that Ryan Garcia fight really changed things for him. He may never be the same guy. He may always, think about things about getting hit and getting hurt. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's finished. I think he's finished. I think he's dead. But the problem is a lot of these guys are not making weight. That's a bad sign. Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Ryan Garcia.
I'm done with Keyshawn Davis.
To me, that's
done. Done.
Yeah, I
And listen, I was ringside for his pro debut. I was invested in Keyshawn Davis. I was ringside for I traveled. I was there. Pro debut. And I was impressed, and I was like, I'm invested in this kid. Done. He not only missed weight and blew a huge opportunity, he screwed a whole card and there were fans that did not get a refund. So most did,
and
but
he was laughing about it. Yeah,
he just destroyed his entire. And then the whole thing that happened after the fight, done.
That was disgusting. Yeah, that was disgusting.
Done.
Like, I'll let you get to the other caller.
All right, Hamed. Thank you.
All right. Good speaking to you.
All right, brother. All right, guys. We got a few calls here, but I'm gonna jump to Canada to get Chad's call because he's calling in long distance. I can hear one of my daughters crying. My wife is putting one of my daughters down. She's screaming. Okay, hopefully you guys don't hear that. Real quick, I'm going to jump to Chad. Chad, how you doing, brother?
Mike.
What's up, man?
Hey, man. Great to hear from you. Great to see you on today. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look, I'll be quick. I don't have a lot to add about Canelo and Crawford just from everything that's been said, you know. I got to say, I guess as it approaches, I'm getting a little more curious about the outcome. And for me, it really just depends on if we're going to see both those guys get in there and give us a full-on authentic fight. And I think if that can happen, it might be a classic night. Other than that, on the topic of American boxing, you want this Canadian's opinion? I think American boxing is doing fine as far as the talent's there in the fighters, and most importantly, the knowledge is there in the trainers and the coaches. You know, that's where the U.S. Has dominated. Really, it's in that knowledge.
That's a great point.
You know, yeah. Well, that's how I see it. You know, and to me, the issue is once these guys hit the pro game, and just the way that everything is set up now at the pro level. So, for example, like what you were just saying, like I feel like these guys are getting overhyped. The hype train through social media. It's just how the whole thing is set up right now. I think the hype and these narratives get away from the actual fight and the fighters. And so, for example, to give you an example, guys like Shushu, Tiger Johnson, these guys are great fighters. They are. They're naturals in so many ways. But then they get in there, and it's kind of what you said, Mike. They're not giving us the goods. They're not delivering on the hype. I think that's the biggest thing plaguing American boxing right now, more than anything else. They got to rein that in, and the matchmaking. I think with Top Rank and companies like that are still doing a great job. I mean, you look at Keyshawn, he was coming along just fine, you know, and Mason. There's a lot of good fighters in the States. I just feel like the pro game is just so convoluted, so crazy with the money, and it's just the whole thing is nuts. The rules are totally all over the place as to whether they get followed or not. I don't know, Mike. What do you think?
I can't disagree with anything you're saying, brother. I think a lot of these guys, to use a quote from my friend Steve Kim, they think they hit a landing pad when it's really a launching pad. They get one big win, and they think, "Oh God, I've made it," and they win a belt or something, and they think that they're a star. And that's the thing with social media, right? You could have a following. Let's say you're a fighter and you have 100,000 followers, and your followers love you. And they communicate with you all day. Hey, champ, you're the best. You're great. Right? But the other 8 billion people on earth have no idea who you are. And if when you have a big win, you have to build upon that. It's a launching pad. So that's one issue. I think these guys get a little bit of money and a little bit of success, and they think they're done. They think the job is done. And it's not. It's just beginning. Then I think there's the amateur system in America is such that a lot of guys are being taught, touch your opponent once and get away, land 2 or 3 good shots in the round and stay away, and you win the round. And they don't have to be hard, just, nice straight shot, nice jab, 1-2 down the middle, and then get away. You win the round, you win the fight. And they're taking some of that to the pros. when they're in a difficult situation, you know, when you're in a tough situation in a fight, you go back to what you know, right? You go back to what's natural. And for a lot of these guys, their upbringing is, okay, let me get away. Let me stay long. Let me just throw a jab out every 20 seconds and feint and just stay away. And that's just not going to translate with fans, particularly when you're fighting once, maybe twice a year, and you're in there with a guy where you're a 10-1 favorite. They just want to see. It's one thing if you're in there against an elite level guy, you know, that's different because then you really do have to be careful and you have to box smart. But when you're in there with a 10-1 favorite and you're a young contender or young title holder working your way up, we want to see that hunger. We want to see that desire. And you're not seeing that from the American fighters. You're seeing it from the guys that are from Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Central Asia. That's where you're seeing that passion. And that's what American fight fans are missing right now. I mean, can you say honestly, Chad, is there any performance with Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, some of these guys that looked passionate to you, or you felt passion there?
No, you're right, man. You're right. And I'll tell you, the fights that excite me the most now tend to be on the small to mid cards, like Raymond Ford and Kolmatov. You know, like look at what they gave us on that night, man.
But
like,
how many people saw that fight?
Fights? Exactly. No, Mike, you're totally right. And leading up to the fight, there was no interest. And then only after the fight happened did people start hearing about it and go back to look at it. But you're totally right. Like for me right now, yeah, Crawford and Canelo, it's interesting, it's big, it's exciting, I guess, whatever. But what actually excites me is so seeing now they're going to put Mason and Noakes in for the vacant belt that Keyshawn lost.
Yeah,
I
like that.
That excites me.
Yeah, that's a really smart play.
And then, Mike, there's that card now that's coming up on the August 16th in place of Teo and Haney. So it's got Itama against White. And then they got Nick Ball versus Sam Goodman. And then they got Ray Ford versus Kakachi, or however we say it. Like, for me, those are the cards I get excited about because I know the kind of fireworks that can come on the night, you know? Yeah. But anyway, look, Mike, I'll let you go. Take some other calls, and I'll go back to listening, man. It was great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Chad. Have a great weekend, brother. Good to hear from you, man. All right. So we got calls from the UK. We got calls from Canada. It's global today, baby. I love it. Okay, real quick, I want to hit a couple of these super chats. So my man, Wheelchairman John, says, I wonder if TKO Boxing Promotions, that's Dana White's outfit, can revolutionize boxing. They need to give fight performance bonuses similar to the UFC. I like that idea. I don't even follow UFC, but I do know they give fight performance bonuses. Yeah, they're not the only ones. There are some boxing promotions that do that. Some. I know some of these like semi-pro, like tough man kind of things, like what is David Portnoy's thing called? Rough and Rumble, Rough and Ready, something like that. One of the guys I spar with, who's actually fighting, he's making his pro debut tonight up in New York. Shout out to my boy, Big Joe, one of my sparring partners. He actually flew up there earlier this week. I'll be watching you tonight, Joe. He did that Rough and Rowdy thing, David Portnoy's thing a couple times. And he got big bonuses for scoring knockouts and stuff. He had like the performance of the night and got extra money. He had a knockout, he got extra money. So I think that's a really smart thing that like, and they're doing that with these tough man things. I think maybe pro boxing could dig into that. Anything you can do, to your point, John, to incentivize guys to just take that extra chance, that's going to make people more excited to watch. And that's what it's all about. My man Sanch right here, USC Trojans own, says, Mike, happy birthday. Tell your diet, supplements, and protein. Yeah, so it's ever evolving. It's always changing, bro. I learn new things all the time from different people and just trying new shit. Guys, the whole thing with fitness, I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole here, but it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. There are no shortcuts. That's something I've had to learn. And there is no like top of the mountain where you're like, I've made it. I'm just going to maintain here, because you get to that point and then you get older and you have to get to a new point. It's always an uphill climb, and it's a lifelong journey. So keep that in mind. But right now, bro, a couple of things to point out. You do not want spikes in your insulin. So to combat that, like when you eat, if you eat a lot of carbs, your insulin spikes, and that causes weight gain. I'm not going to get into the whole science behind it, but you can kind of negate that to a certain, you can mitigate it by when you eat, every single time you eat, bro. Okay. Every meal, make it balanced. Protein with the carbs, so they stick together. So that pretty much means snacking's out. Okay. Like a lot of times what I would do back in the day is like, man, I'm kind of hungry. I want a snack. I'll grab an apple. Well, that's just sugar. That's just sugar. Now, if you eat an apple right before you go to the boxing gym for 90 minutes, okay. But if you're home from the boxing gym and you want to eat an apple, not as good. But if you're going to eat the apple, maybe you cut it in half, you eat the apple with a protein shake. So you have that protein with the carbs, so you mitigate that insulin spike. So there's that. The whole intermittent fasting thing is bullshit. That's just another fucking fad. It's just bullshit. But there really should be a 12-hour window in a day where you don't eat and a 12-hour window where you do eat. I don't believe in this shit where you got to eat for like 4 hours and then starve yourself for 20 hours a day like people like to do. That's idiotic, especially if you're doing boxing training, which is so demanding on your body. You got to have fuel. So I literally get up, bro, 7-ish in the morning, get my kids up, get them fed, whatever, eat breakfast probably around 8. We eat dinner around 6. And then that, 14 hours, I'm not eating. So there is a time where my body is just processing everything and breaking it down, where I'm not eating. Some people are like, eat 8 meals a day, whatever. Honestly, dude, lately I've just been eating 3 meals a day, but I eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. That's it. It's a no-brainer, dude. Just limit the sugar. Every now and then I'll do a couple of cookies. Like, it's my birthday today. I'm probably going to have a cupcake. You know what I'm saying? But okay, that's it. If I have something like that, I'll have it before I go to the gym and work that shit off. High protein, you have to have carbs, but limit it, particularly later in the day. Have more carbs early on and less later in the day. And just have those balanced meals, dude. One of my coaches told me, never just eat carbs or never just eat sugar. And it sounds so simple, right? You're like, well, no shit. But sometimes you need to hear it. It's like, okay, add protein every single time. You want to sit down and eat some pasta, protein shake, or a steak with it, something to combat that. So that's a big one. In terms of supplements, I really don't do any, dude. I mean, I guess creatine counts. Okay, so I will take creatine, and I used to only do it before I lifted, but now I will do like a little scoop of creatine every day because it's healthy for your brain function. And then I do multivitamin and protein shakes. That's pretty much it. It's pretty much it, dude. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, man. Keith, what's up, my brother? Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Salute, Mike. Buon compleanno. Grazie mille, amico mio." I appreciate it. Aaron Gortman with the super chat. My man, Aaron, it's 3:40 a.m. here in Launceston. Woken up, baby. Happy 46, Big Mike. Appreciate that, brother. And I know what that's like, bro. I know what that's like. 3:40 a.m. up in the morning, changing a diaper, screaming baby. Good times. Thing is, bro, I know you know this now. Wouldn't change it for anything in the world. Super chat from Alexander. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. He says, happy birthday, Mike. I'm not sure if this has been talked about, but if there is no drug testing for Pacquiao Barrios, Pacquiao will take that one. Also, if I am Turkey, I would only offer Haney a Matthias fight. Yeah, regarding Pacquiao Barrios, dude, I don't know what to think about that. As far as I know, there's no testing. That promotion really doesn't do any. So I don't know. But why is Pacquiao fighting? This is obviously I hate to use the word setup or the phrase setup because it sounds bad. I don't mean it in a negative context, but this is a showcase, a setup for Pacquiao to come back at this advanced age and win a world title. That's what this is. Will it work out for him? I don't know. Obviously, a prime Pacquiao beats the brakes off of Barrios. At this point, I don't know what to expect. But I got to say, it's not a fight I'm particularly interested in. I may watch a replay or something, but I'm probably not going to watch that one live. And Turkey with Haney, Haney, Matthias, I don't even know if that's worth watching at this point, dude. To me, Haney has to like kind of prove himself to me as a fan to get interested again. That's just kind of where I'm at. That's where I'm at with a lot of American fighters right now, dude. I've really lost interest in a lot of it. There's only a handful of matchups and fighters that I'm particularly interested in right now in the sport. Super chat from Jay Nels. Thank you so much. He says, I worry that the Crawford versus Canelo fight will be boring because of the style matchup. Yeah, I hit on that earlier, man. It definitely has the potential to be a stinker if you look at these guys, not only their styles and mentalities, but where they're at. For Canelo, it's where he's at in his career. For Crawford, it's that he's moving up in weight and fighting a larger opponent who's been in there with bigger guys recently. That may lead to us having a dull fight. For the casual fan that tunes into this expecting fireworks, yeah, this isn't going to be Gotti Ward. It's just not. It's not going to be Hagler Hearns. Okay, let's take a couple of quick calls, guys. We got to run through these. Let's jump to Thad. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Yo, Mike, happy Friday the 13th, brother.
Hey, wow, it's right. Friday.
I've had birthdays on it too.
Wow, I didn't even think about
Indeed.
that.
Yeah, the pre-workout, man. The sweet potato is the best thing. As soon as you wake up, bang. Then a half hour later, pot of coffee. Half hour later, go to the gym. You'll have the best workout ever, and then you have your protein and your complex carbs after. If you have that routine down, you're going to be set, because it's all a matter of what type of carb you eat, the sugar content, and the sweet potato is the best thing for you, just to burn it up. It's like tinder in a furnace. It's going to light up. So for the younger guys out there still doing it, it's a good combo.
Yeah, for the younger guys,
even for us old guys,
freaking stretch. Younger guy, I see these dudes walking around like they can't move their neck and shit. It's like stretch, dude. I was at the boxing gym afterwards this morning, too, stretching, and these guys walked up to me like, "Holy shit, how are you doing that?" Because like I was doing full body stretches. I had my like leg underneath my back, like is doing that. I don't know what you call that stretch. And they're like, holy shit, dude, for a big guy, you're flexible. And I'm like, I've had to work at this shit. And it's one of the reasons why I'm still healthy. Stretch. Guys,
yeah, it's a yoga move. Yeah. Yeah, it's a yoga move. I used to do that stuff too. And the flexibility is key. It keeps you healthy, man. Your joints and your tendons. People forget about the tendons and the joints, which I'll talk about with Crawford.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and then I'll shut up. If you stretch and you do those corrective stretching methods, you can get deeper into a lift. You can go deeper into a squat. You can open up your hips more, so you can work all the connective tissue and the small muscles on top of the prime movers. And that's what keeps you healthy. It may not look as sexy as just bodybuilding, like some of these dudes that are huge, but it keeps you healthy.
Indeed. And, later in life, you need that. Once you cross a certain threshold, it's like around 37, 38 years old, your body kind of, decreases by half, I believe, with the free testosterone. So people are talking about Crawford and adding the muscle. I don't think that's such a great thing that he's doing it. I think naturally he's a guy that walks around about 177, 180, because he was posting 10, 15 years ago on a scale. When he was fighting at 140, he was like 177 walking around. So he did take off a lot of weight to fight at lightweight, and he really wasn't a real lightweight, let's be honest. The junior welter and welter, he was the bigger man usually. So now he's adding this weight, and you have to ask yourself how Snack is involved in this, and he's not being drug tested. So let's kind of put two and two together. I know everybody's kind of doing it, but to a certain degree, other people are doing it and getting away with it while their opponents are being tested and they can't. So that's something we'll have to ask about Canelo, when this drug testing was administered, and what they're using, and for drug testing. But back to my point about the tendons and the joints. When you're adding muscle, it's almost impossible to grow your tendons and joints. There's only one drug out there. I think it's sustanin. I have to remember back, but there's only one thing you can take to actually repair and build tendons. But when you add that kind of weight, you're open to ruptures, and you're open to being so slow. Like, your reaction time is going to be down. Now, Crawford's a guy, his entire career based on timing and reaction. With age, that doesn't get better. Your brain, not your body, is the reaction time. It sends the older your brain is, the less amount of synapses you have to send the signal. It comes into play, guys, at around 37, 38. So he's right at that point. And I believe that timing is going to be way off. And Canelo's been fighting regularly, even though Canelo's past it. He's not a shot fighter by any means. He's a real dude, but he's not what he was in his prime years. I believe the prime years was the first Golovkin fight, and then the Caleb Plant. Those were the fights he was primed. The Bivol fight, like you said, took it out of him. And the Golovkin fights didn't help either. So he was coming off those wars, but he still has that timing. And I think that right hand's going to find its mark in that fight. And I think with all the added weight, Crawford's going to be a little slower. Not going to be able to get his punches off as quick. And his legs, I don't think they're the same. It's not the same guy that... Now, he fought Postol, and he actually ran from Postol, let's be honest. He did drop him a couple of times, but they were like flash knockdowns to the back of the head and some weird angles. But that was always his best thing, was his timing and his angles. With fighting once a year for the last 5 years, I mean, I don't know what Snack's got up their sleeve. I really don't. I can guess what they use. This is what I would use in a stack: HGH test and Anavar as a come down. That's what I would use, but they're way, way advanced. So maybe they have something that could mitigate that. But from my standpoint, I don't think Crawford's going to have the reaction time. I think he's going to be a split second slow, and I think Canelo's going to time him with that right hand. Whether he can keep him down, because I believe he will knock him down. And I believe on those odds, Canelo to knock Crawford down is plus 200. I think that's a great bet. I think he drops Crawford. I don't know if he could keep him down. We'll see, because this Canelo is a little passive. But who's to say? Maybe he comes alive in this fight. But people have to ask themselves, hey, Crawford's been fighting smaller guys his entire career. Now he's fighting a guy relative in size. Canelo's a little bigger, a little thicker, more muscle, but not necessarily bigger. So will he have the same effect against a guy like that? I don't think so. And the odds here, the odds, Vegas, I'm surprised that they're putting out that fight to go to decision as a 2-to-1 favorite. That's like, you have to put up over $200 to win back a $100 profit, which is shocking when there's such a weight jump involved. So they're really under the impression this fight goes the distance for whatever reason why. And Crawford is plus 140 if you bet him straight. He's plus 1,000 if you bet him by knockout, and he's plus 200 to win by decision. That's a low number, plus 200, considering he's plus 140. So they're thinking, all right, well, if he's going to win, he's going to win by decision. He's not going to knock out Canelo. We kind of figure that. Yeah. Canelo, on the other hand, is plus 330 to knock Crawford out, and then plus 130, I think, to win by decision. So either way, you have plus money if you pick the outcome. So that's going to be a fun fight to bet. And I have like every prop on that out on one of my sites, Bet365. They have the best array of prop bets on that fight that I've seen so far. So if you do your homework and you want to get a jump, you start your parlays now, and then you could finish it with that fight in September. And does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah. So it sounds like Vegas is seeing this the way I do. The odds makers. I mean,
they're seeing it.
I see it.
They're seeing it as a decision.
I do too.
Yeah, that's how they're looking at it.
Yeah.
So with the recency bias, you see both these guys going to decision. Really, I mean, Crawford fights once every 5 years, so it's really hard, to go back to a knockout. With Spence, it's like 3 years ago. But anyway, that's Canelo. He hasn't stopped anyone since Plant, so it makes sense. I think Canelo will knock Crawford down, and you get a plus $200, return. I just don't know about the keeping down part, because let's be honest, Canelo never was a really good finisher. He was a great knockout artist, one punch guy. Khan and that guy who was trained by Aaron Wolf. I mean, he blew him out one shot. A lot of these guys were one shot guys. Angulo was stopped standing, but he never really. The Plant fight was nice, and the Saunders fight. Those are really nice knockouts. He set them up perfectly. But other than that, that really wasn't his modus operandi. He was more of a one-punch guy who'll grind you down and beat you by decision. So it makes sense. It does. So leading up to this fight, with the fights coming up, and before I get to that, I want to address somebody earlier who talked about these bad outcomes and decisions and weird things, like in the Tank Davis fight with Roach. He should have been disqualified right there. Should have been counted as a knockdown. Nothing happened, so the people who took Roach got ripped off. A lot of bad decisions. Yeah, the people betting the fights. So yeah, it does have an immediate effect on who the referee is, who the judges are, who the commission is, who is promoting the fight. But you have to be a responsible gambler, and you have to know this. You have to be prepared, and you have to protect yourself by hedging bets if that's the case. I remember you and I talked about it was last year, Crawford fought Madrimov, and on the undercard it was Rayo Valenzuela versus, what's his name? The little Mexican guy that fought, what's his name? Cruz. And I'm like, I think we're agreeing. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I got to jump here in a minute. My wife is yelling at me to go help her with one of the girls.
Okay, man.
I got to cut it short.
All right. Well, I'll leave you with. All right, Mike. Sorry, bro. But yeah, that fight, I changed my bet to Valenzuela when I found out who was promoting. It wasn't PBC, because PBC wanted the other guy to win.
You talked
plus 700 on the decision I got. But
I remember that.
Yeah, Isaac Cruz. Yeah. So if you know who's promoting it, Turkey was promoting it. There was no funny business. Boom. And then PBC got back at him and put him in with Gary Adron Russell, and they set him up. So anyway, Mike, all right. I'm sorry you have to go, but hopefully you'll have more shows. So have a good day, man.
All right, appreciate it, Dad. Have a good weekend, brother.
Bye.
All right, guys. I'm sorry to everyone that's on the line. I gotta go help my wife. Daddy duties. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll do it again soon. I promise. And appreciate all the birthday shouts. And I'm going to go help my wife with the kids, and then go get lunch and have my birthday. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being on the live with me. I promise we'll do it again soon. All right. Peace.